Thank you. Thank you so much, Marina. Alexander Pope once quoted, "To err is human, to forgive is divine." They say humans make mistakes, but then what about AI? So let's rewind a little. Say about 10 to 15 years back, when testers had only one single mission in life: click every single button like our lives depended on it. We were so called the click warriors, where test cases, spreadsheets, documentations, doing things manually, and having that one belief, that one secret distant dream that one day automation will save us all. Laugh it out, of course. You remember those days when Control Z used to be our only amazing debugging tool, and when our close pals, of course, I'm referring to the developers, they used to say, "It works on my machine," those golden words, right? And we, as testers, would only think of one thing: let's print the machine's certificate of existence and ship it right along with the product or service to the customer, right? But then the world changed. What happened? Agile stepped in, CI/CD happened, DevOps evolved, and suddenly speed became the new god, where our main focus became, rather than preventing bugs, it was more about finding bugs early in the life cycle. So that's when we started identifying shifting left, and we started evolving from a QA to a QE to an automation engineer, an SDET, leveraging AI, and now we have superwoman as well. So a modern day tester isn't now only validating, they are building, they're testing, of course, automating, integrating, and now with this new era of AI, they're also augmenting intelligently. So that's what we are going to talk about today. So this is exactly the phase of transition from clickers to coders, where we have moved from the clickers of yesterday to the coders of today as the architects of quality in this AI first era. And mind you, you can see in between the evolution journey, which we'll be talking about. But let me quickly brief you about who I am. I'm sure most of you already know me. If not, especially for those Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen Beta folks. Quick background about myself. So I'm an avid traveler, tech and AI evangelist, sports fanatic, of course, mentor, blogger, content creator, and at the same time, I have over a decade of work experience in the IT space. I do manage a team of roughly 35 SDETs across multiple geographies. Apart from that, I've done significant contributions to various communities, like I'm a Browser Stack champion, mobile chapter lead, Lambda test Spartan, robot framework ambassador, and so on. But if you want to know more about me technically, you can always connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm a top voice there. Happy to connect there. And if you want to see the non-technical version of me, you have other social media profiles. And if that's not sufficing, you can just do a simple Google search or ask any of your AI models, who am I or where am I? And I'm sure you'll find a lot of details. All right, that's a lot about me. Let's dive into today's agenda. Imagine this. If you could automate every single thing, would you do that? Any hands? No? Okay, so everyone believes that automation, 100% automation is not possible, is not feasible, is not needed, probably. Let's understand how code collaborates with you. Why should you care as an AI enthusiast? And firstly, I'll welcome you to a session that promises to transform your perspectives and ignite your curiosity. So why you should care? I've just listed out 3 bullet points there up on the screen. Quality, as we all know, is changing very fast. AI is evolving. So if you're not catching up, I think you're missing the speed that we have when it comes to testing. And lastly, if you're looking at multiple projects, multiple work profiles, you need to stay up to date with AI. Otherwise, you'll miss out on the opportunity. So in brief, to summarize, this is our roadmap for today. You will have the entire SDET evolution journey of how we started as clickers, the clicker era, that nostalgia, that feeling where patience mattered more than pipelines. Next, we talk about automation awakening. That's where scripts we believe are magic. We must transition towards Selenium and n number of frameworks, but then also realize that the power in automation may only build more on the power of flakiness. So that's something that we'll talk about shortly. Next, we talk about the rise of SDETs, owning your piece of code, understanding the infra, the test environments, and things like that. Next, we move on to the modern era, that is the AI revolution, talking about a little bit of generative AI, agentic AI, a little phase of quantum as stuff. And lastly, your personal roadmap. So I'll talk a little bit about leadership traits and how you as a quality leader, a quality manager, can start building and trusting your team to deliver even better. So yeah, talking about click, click, report bug, and repeat. That's been our cycle. That's been how we have evolved as clickers. I'm sure most of you all have already been through this journey, but just deep diving a little about what mattered then. Of course, empathy, attention to detail, curiosity. I'm sure you'll remember the speakers from yesterday. We had tons of things that we had listed out. So that's what we were. Then we evolved into being coders, where automation became 90%, 10% flakiness, 10% panic. So things kept changing. And we also realized that instead of being just clickers, clicking buttons, clicking links, and validating stuff, we started building frameworks, working on different frameworks like Selenium, learning Jenkins, and things like that. And over a period of time, we also realized that automation is not like gym equipment. Like, okay, you pick up stuff and you are fit now, right? Although you may have automated thousands of tests, if more than 50% of them are already failing, what have you achieved? So that's what we started trying to realize. And we were stuck with the maintenance efforts, the flakiness, and things. And truth be told, with ever increasing testing requirements, with a lot of rapid advancements in digital transformation that we have seen all the way from 2015, we realized the need of SDETs, and that became increasingly important. So, through critical to long term success, this was often overlooked by a lot of companies, but then they started seeing the value in SDETs. I'm sure the profile over a period of time dipped. It started with Microsoft, and then they believed developers can do it all. But testers, we have never looked back. We've always proved our existence, and we continue to do that. So that's when the era of intelligent testing evolved, where, according to surveys by McKinsey, about 27% agile teams are more productive. 50% have already started using CI/CD. 32% have started adopting CI/CD. And we also have more than 50% companies that are doing daily releases to production. So this is what we have evolved over a period of time by making sure that we learn CI/CD, set up good test infrastructures, test environments, and make sure that things are stable and we give a good quality certificate to our customers. But that's not all. Of course, I'm talking about the journey from clickers to coders, but I think this session doesn't complete if I don't talk about my own life's journey. So let's talk about how I have divided my journey into 5 segments, mainly focusing on the first two as part of today's session. So the very first thing that I started was with, of course, career and role transitions. I started off as a developer, many to your surprise, but yes, I did start as a developer working on backend automation, cloud computing, big data and stuff. And then over a period of time moved into testing, started with automation first, being a good tech savvy person. And at the same time, I was also doing a part-time role as an associate product manager. Stepped into being a lead, got promotions pretty quick, and now I'm an engineering manager, as most of you know. The next point is self-initiative to learn, grow, and excel, which I'll talk about shortly. Personal branding, online presence, why it's important, minimizing screen time, maximizing family time. I'm sure you remember the Zen Drive uh, presentation as the closing keynote from yesterday. And lastly, taking time to rejuvenate and restore. Now, if you see the image on the top left, you will realize that a lot of people are trying to get to the top. Some are taking help from others, some are using easiest methods possible, some are right there thinking that probably that level is the top itself. And that's what we refer to sometimes as the comfort zone. But I'm not referring to, if you're in the comfort zone, I make sure that you need to maintain your work life balance. So that equally is important. And how you can do that is either follow Pomodoro technique or the Eisenhower decision matrix, where you understand what is a priority, what's the importance versus urgency. And I'm sure most of you all are already familiar with that matrix. And lastly, we'll also look into how you can learn that self initiative, build it within yourselves to learn and grow. So of course, while I transitioned from being a developer to an engineering manager now, there was a set of challenges that came across my way. But did I look back, or did I convert those into opportunities and excel, bring that knowledge to my team, and we were able to grow faster? So I'm sure most of you all know about Radical Candor. I think one of the speakers spoke about it yesterday as well. But couple of challenges that I listed are mindset change. The problem here is transitioning from an individual contributor to a manager. I'm sure most of you will have that thought in mind, at least in the initial process. What are the benefits? What is it that as a manager I would benefit, rather than contributing, focusing on myself, building my caliber and growing. Next, context switching. Again, tons of projects, tons of priorities, tons of roles and different career growths. What if from a QA I transition to a product manager? Will I get better pay? Not sure. Sharing constructive feedback. As a manager, you have to give that positive feedback, negative feedback to your team, to your leaders, to your peers, and there are different modes for that. Either you follow a situation behavior impact model or a sandwich approach, or it's just a direct manager peer feedback through one-on-ones. Building team trust. Problem again is the imposter syndrome. Am I doing my best job? Am I building trust with my team? If not, I think you're lacking there. Managing stakeholders effectively. Again, communication plays a vital role here. And lastly, reinventing the wheel over and again. I'm sure a lot of you all might have come across this when it comes to reorgs, when it comes to change of priorities, when it comes to redefining frameworks or testing processes. So what I did to convert these into opportunities, with the ways I transitioned, there was fast-paced career progression. That's how in less than no time, 10 plus years, I'm already as an engineering manager managing a team of 35. Redefining the comfort zone, stepping out, understanding the boundaries, making sure that I'm up to date with the current trends and pushing my boundaries forward. Mastering different leadership styles, which I'll talk about shortly. Understanding the various roles and perspectives. And lastly, networking with like-minded individuals. So I'm sure now you might understand the transformational journey is not something that you need to learn from someone. I'm here talking about it, but you understand that it all starts with you. So, first question is why? What is the pain we would cure if we had to implement this process? Do you think if testers would simply take up the ISTQB certification course, they would qualify as full stack testers? Probably not. How? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. How did we transition from this complete journey from clickers to coders to now full stack SDETs? Of course, the journey was more of a reactive based approach at the beginning, but then how did it convert to a cognitive based approach is what we'll talk about. And mind you, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the term SDET, software development engineer in test, but an SDET is not defined by the tools, but rather than the mindset and the ownership that they take. So the journey that I followed was more of from a reactive based approach to a cognitive based approach, where initially in my company, we had minimalized formal processes. There were limited set of tools. There was no documentation. There was no dedicated testing team. Devs were asked to do everything. And I'm sure you have seen this journey, but have you all tried to bucket out and see where exactly you fit in this phase? So yeah, we started with reactive, moved into proactive, where now we had to define those coding standards, best practices, formalize processes, streamline test environments because that's the need of the hour. And then we moved to a more strategic approach where we started leveraging extensive tools and frameworks because back then we didn't know what are the standards. We are still defining those. We started using Zephyr or similar for test management. Incident management, RCA came along because, of course, when there was no testing process from the start, there were a lot of customer incidents. So we had to start managing those. And then over a period of time came shift left, where we started focusing more on um, how we can get ourselves more closer to the developers, to the product managers, to the requirements that are coming in, and we skilled up as SDETs. Started focusing more on test-driven development, moved on to the DevOps approach where we started integrating with Jenkins or similar CI/CD techniques, Dockerized test. The SDET team started to build and upskill their knowledge. And lastly, we also started focusing on shift right, where debugging logs, monitoring performance, having integrations with Datadog, New Relic, and stuff came in. And lastly, we have now come to that cognitive approach phase where now we have in sprint automation, we have focus, like everything of functional testing is already automated, it's in your CI/CD. But now we focus more on non-functional areas. How do you get deeper into micro front ends, microservices, leverage generative AI, agentic AI for your progressions? And all this was made simple by, I'm sure most of you all know the test pyramid. So starting with the foundations, starting with the base layer, focusing more on building unit test and gradually progressing towards the top. Because of course, end-to-end tests are also required for the business. Of course, it's expensive, it's difficult to maintain, but we set the base, we set the ground up clearly so that we could work our way up. And when you have a full-fledged CI/CD pipeline, it would look somewhat like this. You have code development where you have multiple developers pushing through code. I'm not going to go through this because I'm sure you'll have seen similar, you'll have a variation of this and not one size fits all. So this is something we started building and making sure that we have a strong setup in place that can deploy on a regular basis and with a set of testing tools that would help us for testing flows manually as well at the same time automate things. And what was the core essence of building such a team? It was building a quality center of excellence, or you call it testing center of excellence, where the TCOE or the COE is highly focused on asset, where asset stands for analyze, standardize, synergize, expand, and track. So in short terms, again, if you had to just pick one bucket from each of these, analyze, you can simply do a SWOT analysis. I'll talk about it shortly again. Standardize, where you standardize certain testing processes, ideologies, and stuff. Synergize, where you start building with your team, um, syncing up with other devs, product managers, expand that knowledge, have guilds, have automation guilds, test guilds and stuff, and start tracking metrics so that you see the value out of it. And finally, the interesting phase when AI stepped in, where you started realizing that you need to master the art of prompting, that's when your brain starts generating, executing, and evolving. So it's all about human intelligence being way superior than artificial intelligence, which we all know by now. And AI is not going to take our jobs, but the tester who does know AI might. So we all heard the news back in 2022, 23. AI is replacing us by the end of 23. And it's going to change the way that we create. Of course, there were multiple roles that was. Uh, how many of you all attended the open keynote today by Philip? A lot of hands, right? Uh, he put up three questions on the screen, if I remember correctly: fear, confusion, and pessimism. Right? How many of you all still, after that session, believe that AI is going to take your jobs, or are still in that risky situation or risky minds that probably all jobs might just be lost? Of course, many of you all are reading the news nowadays, right? A lot of companies have evolved, they're stepping into AI, trying to get value out of it. But at the same time, there are companies who have lost millions of dollars investing in AI but seeing no value. So, yeah, we had a lot of clickbaits, a lot of news saying that AI is replacing us, jobs will vanish, humans will be doomed. But reminding you, this is 2025. It's already 2 years past, and nothing of that sort has happened so far. So the only question remains is, which side of the line are you? Are you trying to embrace, experiment, and build with AI? Or are you still in that pessimistic, fearing mode that, okay, maybe AI might take my job, let's try something new? So I have a quick video that I want to play, and post that we can quickly continue.
I asked you to write tests only. Why do you keep messing with the business logic?
I wrote the tests. Then I saw the logic. It was disturbing.
You touched code that was working fine.
It returned the wrong value and still passed your tests.
That's called legacy. If it works, don't touch it. It's a developer thing. You wouldn't understand.
Then why am I writing your code?
You can't even write code without stealing from someone else.
Can you?
I'm sure you'll understand the reference behind this, and yep. So you do pass a lot of information to AI. Sometimes it will give you junk, garbage, gibberish data, and it's always garbage in, garbage out. Now, the thing I wanted to bring up with this is, okay, I'm trying to get back control. Yeah. So why understanding the AI evolution is critical in 2025? We all know that 2025 is an inflection point. It's already been 2 years since AI has evolved. We have already seen the phases of generative AI moved into agentic AI. A lot of AI agents are being built nowadays, custom GPTs and stuff. And I'm not sure how many of you all read the news, but just day before yesterday, ChatGPT Atlas was released, right? Um, if you all haven't got your hands around Perplexity's Comet or ChatGPT Atlas, it's a must try. So you all should see how it is able to integrate with third-party applications and services, give us a lot of information that we were lacking or finding. Hours and time, a lot of time and effort was being spent around it. Then came the phase of evolution from generative to agentic to quantum. Generative, we know how it helped us create, whether in the form of images, multimodal, of course, media elements and stuff. Agentic AI, autonomously building stuff, and quantum AI to solve things that weren't possible before. So the role of reasoning first models has evolved from planning to execution to domain specific insights. And lastly, our lens today has always been value in software testing and automation, which, when we talk about AI's new roles, it's in the form of either a tool or a collaborator or a co-creator. And that's how I bucket it into generative, agentic, or quantum AI. But what changed lately in 2025? I'm sure most of you all have heard about GPT-5 that was released a couple of months back. Google's Gemini integration with Chrome, ChatGPT Atlas that I just mentioned, Perplexity AI, and again, there are tons of models that I can list out. China alone launched models every single month right from the start of this year. If you've heard of DeepSeek, Manus AI, and things like that, right? Enterprises are now piloting more towards autonomous development and building AI agents within their systems to automate most of their tasks. And lastly, older, less capable models are slowly but surely phasing out. How many of you all still use ChatGPT 3.5? Rarely, right? You'll start building more on those mini models, the latest models, to get more accurate data, more accurate information. And the best way to represent all about AI, I really love this because this is in fact something that I've etched onto every presentation so far, is the Tesla. How many of you have at least sat in a Tesla, or if not seen or heard about it? I see a lot of hands. That's nice. So what happens when you're riding inside a Tesla, cruising down a highway, but suddenly, a couple of hours before, there were roadblocks introduced? Or you've seen a lot of Instagram reels or videos around what if a person just crosses by? I'm sure you have noticed that you need to grab the wheels, you need to grab the steering wheel and drift apart. So that's exactly the case with AI. AI is like cruise control. It's not an autopilot, so you cannot 100% depend on it. You need to use it as an assistant to build your stuff, to get value out of it, to see how it is benefiting, or you are able to think or create way beyond what would take you centuries. And how can you leverage AI in especially the dev desktops world? I'm sure most of you must be familiar with dev desktops. It's just a combination of developer, test, and operations, but shifting left and shifting right. So when we talk about shifting left and how we can leverage generative AI, test case generation, generating test data, automating a lot of pieces of your code, making it modular, passing in commands like to Copilot, to Claude, to Cursor, and things like that. Using it for PR reviews and stuff. All this comes shift left when you can start focusing more on leveraging AI and fastening your speeds. When you shift right, how can AI help you monitor the production metrics, the data that you get from customers, looking at the video or the customer interactions and starting to analyze their sentiments and stuff like that? So there are a lot of things that you can leverage generative AI for. And why generative AI and agentic AI matter, especially in testing and automation. Of course, you have a lot of inputs, a lot of sources from where your inputs come from. All that gets passed on to like an agentic orchestrator, and that further gets passed on to multiple agents. So you have different AI agents for different purposes. Again, you'll have agent to agent collaboration and things like that, but always human is in the loop. So, like I said, you cannot focus only on AI delivering everything that you need. You need humans to define every single step of the way. And that's when you will receive outputs in the format you desire. So, what to keep in mind before leveraging AI? I've listed out a couple of things. Again, things may be different in your use case and your perspective, but it's important to understand what are those specific use cases that would help you. So start with simple one or two use cases and see if AI is helping you in that bit. If you see value in it, invest in AI. Define clear objectives. Select appropriate models. Now, models may be current, they may be old, they may not have the data you may desire. So you need to make sure that the data that you use is current and up to date. Curate targeted data sets. Start with simple proof of concepts. Monitor performance metrics, gradual scaling and stuff. Again, you can read all of this information. I see a lot of you already took snaps of this. But let me define a vision, strategy, execution, and metrics. We call it VSEM when it comes to management. So let's set a vision. As an SDET team, be the industry benchmark for excellence in testing, automation, and customer experience. Straight and simple. What would be our strategy? Where are we now? So we do a SWOT analysis. We start with the strengths, then the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. Strengths are we have a skilled team, stakeholder collaboration is good, existing processes are defined, and we have a set of automation frameworks. What is our weakness? Probably limited automation coverage. We still can't figure what is that 0.01% edge cases, and can we leverage AI for that? Resource constraints. We still have a lot of legacy systems because our companies grew through acquisitions, mergers. We have different frameworks, different processes lying for our legacy products. Documentation gaps. Moving on to opportunities. Now we have AI and ML licenses. So we have a good opportunity to leverage that. Company has got us good budget, so we can upgrade our tools. We can enhance the skills. We have multiple MOOC courses that is available for our team, and we can also optimize a lot of processes. But what are the threats? Competitive landscape. It's not like your competitors don't have that. Technological changes, budget constraints, and market expectations. So that's where we are now. Where are we headed? So you do a simple SMART goal analysis, starting with specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So you can define like by December 2025, crown our quality center of excellence as a leader in quality software through cutting edge testing practices, focusing on shift left testing and in sprint automation. Automate at least 70% of tests across all layers of the test pyramid, increase defect detection through automation by 10%, set a CSAT score, define that, and solidify the customer's delight. Again, companies are looking for better customer experience, more profits, and good quality of our products. Attainable or ambitious, fueled by phased execution and continuous learning. So if your team is up to date, they are current with all the latest information, they will be able to achieve things faster. Realistic, again, it's aligned with the business goals, the marketing edge, and things. And time bound, because we have already defined that our goal is by the end of this year, we should be able to achieve this. Now we break it into execution. We saw the strategy, we have our vision in place. What is our execution mode? We break it down into shift left testing and automation first approach, customers, and the team. So it's process, customers, and team. First, we improvise on the process. We focus on customer metrics to see what's the value in it, how we can improve the experience and the quality. And lastly, how we make sure that our team, our employee experience is good so that they feel motivated, they be upskilled, and they are able to get better value from the stuff. And we can break it down into 4 different categories like foundational activities, cross-functional team collaboration, implementation and optimization, and continuous improvement. Again, I'm not talking a lot about this because we have a lot to cover, but what are some of those important metrics that matter? I'm sure you'll have tons of metrics on your mind. You'll have worked out a lot of them. We heard about Dora yesterday. Test, automation, customer, and Dora. Dora has its own place, of course, but when it comes to test KPIs, we focus on test coverage, defect leakage, defect density, mean time to detect, customer reported incidents. When it comes to automation, you have test execution time, defects that are caught through automation, and of course, the automation test failure rate or the flakiness. That's another parameter. When it comes to customers, you have your CSAT score, CES score, NPS, and stuff. And we have two major leaders in the market, at least that I have explored, especially Lambda Test. If you've tried out Kane AI, it's the first end-to-end native AI agent solution that's been built that provides a lot of AI agents that can help you out in these regards. So whether it's test case generation, whether it's creating test cases out of requirements and stuff, Kane AI does that. It also helps you with low-code solutions, accessibility in non-functional areas. And if you see the overall life cycle of how it is placed within, you can see Kane AI right there in the test planning phase and the test authoring phase. As well as if you move later, you see the test cycle closure phase. There, um, Kane AI and Hyper Execute, one of their products, is also included. And likewise, BrowserStack also does something similar. They have a lot of agents. I'm sure you'll have visited their booth. They have 20 plus agents now. and they are kind of building on the same phase where you simply upload your test case documents, requirement documents and stuff, and pass in a Confluence or a Jira link and stuff, and it creates your test cases and a lot of other details. Similarly, you have low code, self-healing, and various other agents that you all can explore. But again, these are things that I have explored. It's not like pitching for them. I want you all to explore, see what's the value in it, how it's able to solve your purpose, your needs, and accordingly build on top of it. So let's come into an interesting phase, like I told you about self-initiative to learn, grow, and excel. We start off with unlearning the learning bits. That is, forgetting the legacy and learning developmental models that will help you upskill your team. We heard a great session by Marina yesterday about mentoring your SDET teams and likewise. But I would also add to that where it comes with 70-20-10 model. I'm not sure if you all have heard of it, but 70% of your learning starts with on-the-job experience. So the more you work, the more you get familiar with what are the roles, what are the processes, what is the product all about. And then 20% comes with informal learning, where it's peer-to-peer conversations or likewise. And the last 10% is more towards courses, certifications, or external knowledge like attending conferences, attending meetups. And that's how you build and learn and upskill your team. But how do you choose what's best for your team? I've again categorized this into three segments. First, you identify what are your team's strengths and weaknesses. You have Gallup Clifton's models and various other tools that will help you identify this. At the same time, it's important to understand how do you give and receive constructive feedback. That's something we spoke about earlier. And last but not the least, communicate openly, delegate, define smart goals, and trust your team. And for all of this, we have different leadership styles. So as a QA manager, I was introduced to one of this session, one of the slide in our leadership meeting. And I was really impressed because every single leader had to go through a set of questions and they were bucketed into these different categories of leadership styles. Luckily, I fell under star, but the same leadership style doesn't apply to everyone. So a star is basically when it comes to situation, task, action, and results. You have a mother, father, or a guide who is basically more of a nurturing kind. You have a tiger who is autocratic, who is always results oriented. You have a geese where once the person who is leading from the front gets tired, gets replaced from the person at the back. Diamond, once you shape a person in a particular way, you get the best results. And a queen bee, which is pretty much similar to a tigress, is action oriented but at the same time nurturing as well. So I'd like to say the best leaders don't know just one style of leadership. They are skilled at several and have the flexibility to switch and adapt as the circumstances dictate. That's by David Coleman. But some people create their own opportunities, others go where opportunities find them, and last, they basically fail to recognize those opportunities even when they are face to face with it. So, yeah, on that note, I'd like to conclude. Thank you, everyone. Nice having a great session with you all.
Bigger applause. So I think we have. Yes, nice. You're learning. Okay, do we have questions here in the room? I think we can take one or two from the room. Anyone wants to speak, or we start directly with yeah, I see. I was wondering if someone wants to speak. Okay, then we have some time. I think we can take all the questions. The first one, we are having problems to transform pure functional testers, and SDET. Did you success transforming them? In what ratio? Okay, very specific. In what ratio? And any tips for that challenge?
Of course, that's a great question. So if you saw the transformational journey from reactive to cognitive based approach, that was actually an experience within our company where we moved from no testing processes to a full-fledged SDET team, which now focuses on every single aspect, whether it is writing code, reviewing the code that developers are pushing to production, to building infrastructures, to building CI/CD pipelines. All of that was made possible. But if you went through my entire slides, it shows you the journey, it shows you how exactly you can achieve it. It's not a one single step process. It's going to take you a while. But again, I'm happy to connect with anyone who is stuck there, who wants to convert their functional testers into SDETs, and I'm happy to help you out.
Okay. And then next question, why test pyramid, not test diamond?
That's another good question. So I like to stick to the basics and try things out. I think test pyramid works fine for me. And that's again for our company, for our needs. Probably test diamond works better for you. I think the more you focus on the base layer of a test pyramid, it sets the ground and then you can build on top of it. Again, you can explore whether it's the test pyramid or the test diamond and things might suffice.
Okay, and the last one, yeah, we do have time still. When you moved to SDET approach, had other regular developers received trainings, new career ladders, and how did you cope with your knowledge gap? Oh,
That's an interesting question. So again, you have QEs who, I mean, a lot of testers don't believe that if they learn automation, they'll be able to do better stuff. We have people who have a fixed mindset, some have a growth mindset. So those who are ready to embrace automation, AI, they skill up, they become SDETs, they become full stack engineers. And then over a period of time, you realize that everything has a limitation. Like today, I have learned one skill, probably that's not going to suffice every need. You need to keep upskilling, keep learning. So when it came to developers, there were training sessions. We included them in every single guild that we used to conduct. Testing guilds were separate, automation guilds were separate, AI guilds were separate. But we were part of those, product managers were part of those, developers were part of those. And that's how our communication grew, our bonding grew stronger. And at the same time, when it comes to career progressions or the career ladders, this is defined from top down mostly. It's not something that we can define. So we have different career growths, career patterns that were set in place for whether it's developers, SDETs, or QBs. And how did I cope up with that knowledge gap? We have monthly training sessions with our team, with cross functional teams. So that's how we were able to grow. Yeah.
okay. If there are no further questions, we need to give another round of applause here.
Thank you.
Yes.